My name's Jordan, also known as Scraps, and I'll be guiding you through an old patch I've managed to find and clean it up a bit so that way we can use it within our tracks. I hope you enjoy this. It's called Mogar. It's a clean-cut patch that I've remastered, and I think it'll provide a lot of usefulness when dealing with this. It has a lot of decay and a lot of sustain, and it even has a lot of grittiness that you quite can't normally get with other patches. So I have a listen. And I think I'll actually work on that song because it sounds pretty cool within the first few minutes of making it. Anyways, so I'm gonna display a little bit more of what this patch can actually do with a little bit more of sound examples, and then we'll get right into it and start making the patch. So. Oh, I also forgot to arm it. So you can dive really, really far deep into this patch once you start messing around with the different octaves. Anyways, let's get started. Oh, forgot completely to hide you. There we go. I forgot to hide it. That's all I'm saying. Anyways, we want to create a new instance of Reason. We want to right click, go to Utilities, create a combinator. In this combinator, we're going to make two maelstroms. So just load up the first one by right-clicking. Once this maelstrom is selected, it has a blue cyan outline over it. What you can do is you can click and hold, and you'll get this. I guess it's more like a ghost patch. Yeah, it's more like a ghost patch of what you're gonna do with the maelstrom. Either drop it down, but if you hold Option, you'll have this plus over your mouse, and so what this will activate is that you can create a duplicate of this once you drop it down, and then you can let go of Option to create your second maelstrom. So for the first maelstrom, we're gonna call this, and pardon my language everyone, this is just what the patch is called. It's called Fuck Even More. And for the first patch, I'm gonna go over to the tape and name it so that way we can keep track of what we're messing with. I'm gonna name this Killer Bass. And actually, this is actually a patch in the factory sound bank, so you can find it and then load it without messing through all the different parameters. Okay. So for the first patch, for our first Fuck Even More Maelstrom patch, we're going to change the polyphony to 1. We're going to change the portamento to about a quarter, so about 32%, or 32. We're going to change the range to 5. We're going to change the index up a bit, so about 24. Take the shift mostly all the way down, so negative 48. Take the filter down that same path as well, so let's go for negative 50 on that one. And for the modulation, take it down about negative 40, so about a quarter. Let's see, anything else on this? No, I'm just gonna turn the mod wheel all the way up, although we can always automate it with the controller I have. Okay, so that about does it for the modulation on this part. For our first oscillator, we're going to change this to a sawtooth, just regular sawtooth. We're going to take it down 2 octaves. We're going to turn up the motion, or actually the index, quite a bit. So about 105 should do it. Don't mess with any of the motion. Should be good just by now. Turn up the attack about 64%, as well as the release. Just bring in about 64. Okay. Make sure the button to go to shaper is on. The routing, actually. Okay, for our second oscillator, make sure to turn it on. We're going to choose a sawtooth. And we're going to take this down, take it down 4 octaves so it reaches octave 1. We're going to turn up the index quite a bit, so about 91% on that. Take the attack, about 66%, same with the release, so about 66%, or 67, as close as you can get it. The sustain, bring that down to about 66, and leave the decay where it is. Turn on the routing below the first oscillator. So there's this green line, as you can see, that separates the two routing signals. You want to choose the one as lowest. So instead of button 1 or 2, make sure you have 3 and 1 on for the routing settings. For, let's see, I'm trying to mimic this patch as best as I can. So turn on shaper, turn on the amount, make sure it's on sine wave to about 102, or make it about 100, yeah. For the filter envelope, we're going to turn the amount up to about 46%. We're going to take the sustain and release. Make sure the release is a little bit more than the sustain, so it rings out better. So that's 67%. For filter A, low pass 12, just leave it like it is. Turn on keyboard. Make sure the frequency of filter A is about 110%. Turn up the resonance a bit, so about 50. Let's see. For filter B, make sure that our button is on that leads to the shaper, so that way the filter signal can go through the shaper, and then the shaper can go through filter A. Okay, make sure it's in combinator plus for filter B. Turn up the frequency a little bit more, so about 96%. The resonance maybe about 30%. Actually, let's make that a solid quarter, so 24%. Turn up the spread a little bit, so about 18%. Okay, now for our second patch. For our second killer bass maelstrom patch, we're actually going to go into bass, and in our Reason Factory sound bank, find killer bass, and just hit OK. Because we don't need to mess with any of that. That's already been in place for us. After this, we're going to go to Studio Effects, choose a Line 6 bass amp, just turn on the compressor. Excuse me. Okay, so after this, we want to create a soft tube saturation knob. You do need a rack extension for this, or you could just skip this step entirely if you don't have it. So we're going to turn up the saturation to about 4.2, keep it on low for the saturation type. Then after this, we're going to create a Scream 4 distortion unit found in Creative Effects. Actually, let me undo that. After this, we're going to create a MC class equalizer, then a Scream 4 distortion unit. What this is actually allowing us to do is that we're taking a very raw signal out of these two maelstroms and squashing them down and then naturally boosting them just a bit, so that way we get not heavy peaks, but intriguing sound when it comes to resampling. And you can also resample this for other things, and so on and so forth. So for our equalizer, I'm going to turn on low cut, parameter 1, parameter 2, and high shelf. For our parameter 1, we're going to take it about 187 Hertz, gain down, Q all the way up. for our second parameter, take it about 2.354 kilohertz. Take the gain down to negative 18.3 and the Q all the way up to 32. So gain down, Q all the way up means that I'm taking the gain all the way down as low as it'll go, and the Q all the way up means that it's going to 32. So the gain is negative 18.3 and the Q is 32. For the high shelf, I'm actually, instead of boosting it this time, I'm going to take about 4.630 kilohertz, taking the gain about negative 3.4 and the Q off, so 0.5 on that one. For our Scream 4 distortion unit, we're going to change it to tube. We're going to change the damage control to 82. Turn P1 halfway, so that's good. And P2 a little bit more than halfway, so about 68% on that. And then after this Scream 4 distortion unit, create an MC class maximizer. Turn on soft clip. Turn the amount to about 102. The output to 2.6. The release to auto. And 4 minutes look ahead with the limiter on. And make sure that's boosted a bit, so about 3 decibels. The reason why I didn't choose 120 soft clip amount or 127 and taking off the limiter is because what this patch actually allows us to dive a lot deeper into the sound instead of actually blowing up our speakers. So limiters are good for some things, just not everything. So when in doubt, use a limiter. So for after this, we're going to create a line 6 bass amp to squash the signal a little bit more. I'm actually going to turn up the threshold to about 89 and the volume to about 75. Now if we have a listen, we should get the same effect. Oh, one other thing. I'm flipping this around now. We forgot to take the main output from our first Maelstrom, our fuck Maelstrom patch. Take the output and plug it into the input of our second Maelstrom, also known as killer bass. Now if we have a listen, we should have a much different signal, but still resembles some of Mogar's patch. So let me make sure all the routing is connected, and it's not. What will usually happen is if your second Maelstrom isn't connected, the only thing you need to reconnect on the back is just the output of your bass amp. And you want to plug that in to your from devices and your combinator. So that way, when you play the patch, you're going to have a nice sweet package when you close the show devices. It's just going to be your Mogar patch and it's clean to use. So let's take another example and see if this patch came out correctly. Okay, cool. So we managed to mimic the actual patch that I had. That's one of the... If you're going to create patches and tutorials for creating patches, FYI, you should always make the patch beforehand, so that way when you go and recreate it in real time, you have all the parameters. Unfortunately, I skipped this step entirely. All the stuff I do is completely live, because I don't want to have all this pre-planned script. It's good to have it only when teaching very useful techniques and tips and tricks. The only problem is that it's not in real time, so anything you discover right then and there when you're teaching, you can also add. But if you have a pre-planned script, it's not real and it kind of drives people away. It's kind of like that fake advertising stuff. You get blown up with too many pop-up ads. Anyways, so thanks for joining me on Friday. Let me write it down beforehand so I know. So for Friday, we're going to be discussing this. Let's see. We're going to be discussing oscillators, but we're going to be covering a little bit more in depth into it. So this is only going to be the second video. It's going to come out Friday. I'm not exactly sure when Friday, but probably around 3 to 4. Somewhere within that range. So on Friday, we're going to be discussing oscillators, a little bit more of what are all the different types of oscillators. Like this is a granular synth, so you have maybe 100 waveforms. No, about 50. About 50 to choose from when dealing with, or maybe 75, I'm not sure. When dealing with the very fine amounts of synthesis. There's a lot of different types of tools, a lot of different types of synthesizers, including hybrids. So on Friday, I'll be guiding you through that. Have a great Wednesday and a great 2 days, and I'll see you again Friday.